the only concern I have with this, I think, I understand where you're coming from. I think my concern is mostly around process. One, did we give the public enough notice that we were having this discussion? In other words, has the public seen this?
Right. This is not an ordinance. This is just a resolution. And therefore, and Mr. Iso can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't need a public hearing on a resolution.
No, it wasn't on our agenda, though. So if someone had a public comment about it, they had no advance notice that we were discussing it.
Right.
And second thing that concerns me is I didn't have a great deal of notice to look at this since you sent it this afternoon, which means you have legal conclusions in your statement, which I'm sure are correct, but the fact is I have not had a chance to look at them, and I don't know that our council has had a chance to look at them or weigh in. Certainly I have not had a chance to. So I would just ask you to table it until the next meeting, which is next week, so we can have enough time to look at it. Otherwise, just from a process perspective, it feels troubling. Not even discussing the substance, which I think we've all said there's plenty of substance here.
Right. And I would respond by saying that we do have an option of appealing the order. We're not precluded from taking appellate action. And my thought by putting this on today's agenda is to have a statement publicly made as to our reaction to this in advance of perhaps seeking appellate review.
Which I understand completely. All I'm saying is you state that she violated a rule of law that I haven't even looked at.
So Commissioner Golub, one of the concerns I think that when we looked at this was, a TRO, your strength of your argument is diminished as time goes by. Because in effect, one of your arguments is I can't live by this restriction, and if you and because of the city and the way we do things, because we do it properly, for instance, we won't be able to get an attorney to represent us on the potential appeal probably until our next meeting, because right now we're working on the request for quotes. That'll take a couple days. We're hoping by the 6th we'll be able to come to the city council and say this attorney is ready and we have quotes and you can all look at that and we can hire this attorney to take the next steps. So I think the thought process is though passing a resolution today allows us to say we haven't waived any of our rights to object to this, and we're stating it as a city council as soon as we got together after this order was entered, so that the DA's office or whoever comes in to argue the opposite when we try to lift the TRO doesn't come in and say, well, wait, you basically have dealt with this for 10, 15 days, what's your problem? You see, so that was part of our idea when we talked about it. You're correct. We haven't had much time and notice, in terms of even all of us, but we just thought this was a way to preserve to some extent, because we know we're going to be delayed in terms of filing this with the court. Ideally, we would have loved to have been in the court today, and we looked at our existing attorney contracts, and there was just no way we could get that done.
And Tony, have you had a chance to look at this and weigh in?
The resolution, Commissioner?
Yes.
No, I have not.
Okay, so I put this in the form of a motion.
Sorry,
And it was
Tony,
seconded.
do you have any thoughts you would like to share?
Not at this time, Commissioner.
Any other comments or? I guess my comment is I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Golub, and this is, I think, though, an extraordinary circumstance where we have to act quickly, as quick as we can within our own rules of procurement and retention and all the rest. And so I think we should move ahead. And I'll vote in the affirmative of this because of that.
But just so so this resolution isn't going to stop us from doing anything one way or the other, though, right? It's not going to stop us from moving ahead with our opposition to this TRO.
No, but it does plant sort of I guess, a marker that if that argument comes to us that says you didn't object, you've lived by this for 14 days, and the judge is looking at that, we say, but as soon as we came together, we objected to this and voted to essentially pass a resolution stating that.
Could I ask a question as a layman?
Yes, sir.
So you stated law says we should have the opportunity to respond. We were denied that. They filed it at the 11th hour the day before a long holiday break, which no business transpires during. This is our first opportunity to get together since that occurred.
Right.
Would the court view this as an objection, or would the hiring of the attorney, perhaps as soon as Tuesday, really be that key objection point? And I'm just curious, again, to the mayor's point, I get it, totally get it. We want to put a marker down. This is unacceptable. I get the whole stratagem. I'm just curious how it's viewed. Is this more of a kind of a performative act, or does this have bearing in the legal realm?
I just echo what the mayor just said about making a clear statement as early as possible so that no argument could be made against us that, well, you lived with it for however long it took you to retain counsel,
Because
get
we
the
lived
case.
with it this long because we had no choice.
Exactly.
Well, we were debating whether or not when Tony sent me the notice, and I know he sent it all to you, should we get together? But it was Thanksgiving, and I mean, but that was one of our thoughts was, because these really do sometimes turn on just that timeliness of when we object. It really depends on what the judge is going to focus on, and you never know, so.
From a process perspective, and I totally understand Commissioner Golub's perspective here, but we have added other things to the agenda as and when they have come up. So this is not the first time that we are adding something to the agenda, at the city council table. Of course, I understand that it doesn't give the public enough time, and I would have really liked Tony to weigh in on it, especially as the two non-lawyers here. But, from a process perspective, there's also, this is not that unusual. We have done it in previous times.